Don in London. Hello, it's October the 29th. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour. Beyond the pale in the end. Beyond recognition in the end of my drinking days. I got to a place where I was sitting on a park bench with a bottle and nowhere to go, nowhere to talk to, no one to talk to, not wanting to talk to anybody, just seeking oblivion and hoping that I wouldn't wake up. That's where drink took me. A very long journey into the gutter where I lay in the gutter judging the world as it went by. And I guess that's true, but it's not a nice place to be. And what do you do about it? What can you do about being an alcoholic? So I'm just looking through my notes here, and I'm wondering what I'm going to say. Yeah, I know what I'm going to say. I got sober one day at a time, and the horror of my life, where it got to, was desperate, desolate, had no way out, knew there was some sort of solution if I was willing to find a way to be open, honest, and share my life as it was and as it is. So why do these videos? Maybe to share a bit of experience, strength and hope around how anyone, anywhere, can find a way out of the malady or the allergy of drink and addiction to any substance and any sort of behaviour. So if it hadn't been alcohol, I guess it would have been drugs, but somehow I feared it enough, drug culture, not to get involved, because it would have speeded up, I suspect, my demise. I had enough trouble with alcohol and the behaviour which it created for me, and not realising that I was controlling myself and the world as best I could, and the more I controlled it, the smaller my world got, because in fact and in reality I wasn't in control of anything. So these days I recognise I am powerless over alcohol. I'm mostly powerless over people, places and things, and I accept it. I really do. That life is the way it is, and that's just the way it is. So through all those drinking years, far too many to go through, I had to do a life story to sort out what had happened to me and why me, why on earth me, and then I realised, why not me? I'm just another human being on the planet, and any human being can find themselves in a place of misery and desperate feelings about life. So my solution at the time was to find oblivion from the reality of my life and what was unacceptable to me, where I'd got to, successful in a career and no family, no close family, quite alone and still looking for the right girl. And the right girl had come and gone many a time, because I tried too hard and took control, not in a manipulative way, but just because that's what I thought I had to do to make it right for them, whoever they were, and that they would enjoy being with me. But truly I had no clue about who I was and what I was about. I was just a working machine. So one of the other addictions I had was work. If work worked, I worked, and I had the money to try and make life whatever I thought it ought to be, even when I didn't really know. So it was important for me to learn about my past and express what went on, facts and feelings, so I might deal with them. So I had a mountain of stuff to resolve by the time I got to this place called AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. I had a moment of clarity, saw a psychiatrist, said I cannot do this on my own. They got me to a place of safety, dried me out, and then a whole load of stuff happened which was just impossible. But for some reason I realised that the only safe place where I could start living again, or start to actually work out who I was and am becoming on a daily basis, was the Fellowship of AA, because it offered 24/7 sanctuary here in London, 700 meetings a week. I'm very fortunate. And through going to many meetings, I started to learn how to be sober and how to deal with the life I had been living, let it go, all the old attitudes and behaviour, and start living the solution, a new set of attitudes and behaviour, about not hiding away, isolating, and letting misery creep over me, and then into a dark gloom which went on for months and years. Before that, an anxiety state, of course, where I thought it better to be dead, but I was given enough, I was injected with something at the beginning to stop me from killing myself, because that's what I've been doing slowly for quite a long time. And over the last few days I've heard new people coming into the Fellowship of AA who are experiencing exactly the same thing. They've been put in a place of safety, a hospital, or some form of safe haven, are getting to meetings of AA and wondering why the world hasn't suddenly sprung into being okay. And the answer is progress, not perfect. We make progress as best we can, given where we've got to. So some of us have gone way down beyond where it's, I don't know, it's just where you get to. It gets as bad as it needs to get until we find we need to do something about it. And professionals as well as the Fellowship helped me in my early days. Professionals who supported the Fellowship and what it was trying to do simply helped me be open, honest and willing to change and try and start life again. And when you are into your teens and young adulthood, or even middle, or approaching old age, or in old age, we still come with the same thing, a desire, hopefully, not to drink, and to try and work out how life can work again. So the Fellowship of AA is a big part of my story, which I share here, in how to get well, how to be well, how to deal with being unwell in recovery from addiction, because it's not all plain sailing like life is. You know, the longer we're alive, the more we will face not only good times but bad times. We will face the most joyous happiness, and we will also face the absolute devastation of grief, where we lose people who are close to us. And one of the things in Fellowship which is often said, it sounds like a joke, when you come to AA, make sure you can buy yourself a black suit and tie, because you're going to see a lot of people not make it. And that is the nature of addiction. Many people cannot get well. It's not their fault at all. It's the nature of the disease, that some people just can't get well. So if we do get well one day at a time, it is I suppose a modern miracle, in the sense that it can be understandable as people get well if they have the time and the support to get well. But equally, sometimes people just cannot get well. So yes, I have a black suit, and I have used it quite often when people have died. That's the nature of addiction. Trying to stop on our own is almost impossible. So AA saved my life. I never speak for AA, I just speak about what AA did for me, helped me get open, honest and willing to look at me, the success and the failure, the disease and what it did, and then to move on into the solution, which is the 12 steps, life principles, which then give me back my freedom of choice based on real life rather than some sort of fantasy. Real life, life on life's terms. So that's what it's about, and the reason why I've been talking about life story and how difficult it is to get into Fellowship. There's a lot of new people, I don't know why it is, around about October, end of holidays, into a new phase in life, people suddenly find their dependence, reliance and then addiction to substances or behaviour is getting in the way of doing anything. So fellowship is very helpful in that respect, as long as you understand what it's all about. And the worst thing is, a lot of people don't remember what it's like to be new. And that's why the AA preamble, which I share here, which is shared at the beginning of every meeting, is really important to me. So it helps understand the can-do, can't-do bits of fellowship, what it can do and what it cannot do. And it does take time to understand this, because when we're first in, we can't even hear anything. We're lucky if we can hold a cup of tea and eat a biscuit. That's how it is. Anyway, I've been helping people this morning already. And I hope I've been helping them, but you never know. They said so, but that's very kind of them. It's what happens next, which is important. So AA, what is it? I share the AA preamble here, and then I'm going to share some daily reflections from this book, and some reflections from my experience of life today and in previous times. But there's an awful lot of previous times here, so it will be on the blog rather than all spoken. So the AA preamble first. Alcoholics Anonymous, and this is for everyone. It's a reminder, because if I forget this, I forget what it's all about. And we do forget, which is why meetings are so important, and listening to what's going on is so important, as well as sharing our life story as we go along. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. So our very presence in a meeting, even though when we're new it feels horrible and awkward, like the new person at school, it's not that at all. You are allowed just to be yourself, even if you don't know what yourself is just yet. So we try and help each other recover. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. So there are no barriers to AA at all. There are no rules, laws or regulations you must conform to. There are no rules, laws or regulations for you to conform to. It's simply a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. So if you're poor, like I was, and had nothing, even though I was silly and I had just about a bare minimum to live on, so I still put money in the hat because I felt I ought to. And then somebody said, stop putting money in the hat, you haven't got any money to spare. So there are no dues or fees for AA membership, but we are self-supporting through our own contributions, and that means everyone in the fellowship. So somehow we get by with a prudent reserve. We never have more than we need, because to do so would cause issues around money. And finance and romance are the principal reasons why we may go back to drinking. So we don't want to make it easy, and the romance part is difficult, because if we put people in a room together sharing truth, the truth of who they are, we end up loving them. But actually, as we go along, we understand what unconditional love is, rather than conditional love, which is very unhelpful in all walks of life. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. So the fellowship is there for one primary purpose, which is to help, is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Now, as AA is not allied to anything, when you go to AA you'll find that everybody's allied to something, because they've still got a life to lead outside fellowship, and fellowship is there for sobriety, so the rest of life can work. So you will hear many views in people sharing about how life is today, and their views and opinions, causes come out in what they share, because that's their life story. But what we look for is the similarities and how they got sober and stayed sober, and that is the key, listening for the similarities. But in my early days it was better than TV in terms of life stories coming out, and I was just absorbed that, my God, I'm not alone. People have had life tough just like me, found they didn't know who they were, and were learning who they might be on a daily basis. So when I wake up in the morning, I don't know very much about what might happen today, unless it's planned. And by the end of it, I know a little bit more about my journey. Destination is guaranteed, expiration, and the sell-by date is improved if we stay in fellowship and find sobriety. Watchword: AA will not cure or fix you. You're not cured and you're not fixed. It's a daily solution, these 12 steps. And the Daily Reflections book covers the 12 steps and 12 traditions by one-day readings. In this one, written by AA people for AA people, and hopefully, well, I know it's online already, but hopefully it will go on the AA website online as well, where the big book of AA, which is behind me there, and the 12 steps and 12 traditions in the purple one, they're already online on the AA World Service Organisation website. So free always, yet we still retain just enough money to make literature like this. So if you can't get to a computer or you don't have one, you've got hard copy. And I've read this over and over the years, one daily reflection a day, and it always says something different to me, which is the quality of what people write, but also the quality or the ability of me to hear it or read it again and make some sense of it. So today's AA daily reflection, before I do mine, our survival. AA daily reflection, October 29th. Our survival. Since recovery from alcoholism is life itself to us, it is imperative that we preserve in full strength our means of survival. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, the purple book on the shelf behind me. The honesty expressed by members of AA in meetings has the power to open my mind. So from being closed down, I get to open up and hear. Listening is the first one. And then we start sharing as best we can. Nothing can block the flow of energy that honesty carries with it, and this is true for me too. When I hear an honest story, not tall stories like I used to share when I first got to AA, to embellish and make myself a really good alcoholic, I started to hear the truth of what people were saying, and so I had to look at me and my truth. The only obstacle to this flow of energy is inebriation, but even then no one will find a closed door if he or she has left and chooses to return. And in recent days, the meetings I've been to, there's lots of people returning, having had calamitous times which have led them back to drink, to find oblivion. So the door need always be open. Once he or she has received the gift of sobriety, each AA member is challenged on a daily basis to accept a program of honesty. And that's hard because we feel embarrassed or fearful that if we tell the truth of who we are, people won't like us. And the answer is, those who don't like us and don't want to know us, well, why pretend? What's the point? There is no point, especially in close relationships. If we hide the truth of who we are from them, people feel that let down and a betrayal when they find out the truth. So it's better just to be truthful. And these days the stigma, this is my personal opinion, not an AA opinion, sharing the truth, being open, honest and willing, makes progress easier with people who accept us. My higher power created me for a purpose in life. Well, nature and providence for me. I ask him to accept my honest efforts to continue my journey in the spiritual way of life. I call on him for strength and to know and seek his will. Now, I think in my life, well, I feel in my life, I've been agnostic, atheist and believer, but I wasn't quite sure whether what I was trying to be agnostic about, not knowing what God is or isn't, being an atheist, not believing in God because my dad said there wasn't one, but he was quite happy for us to go to Sunday school and polish our shoes, and then to believe in God, but never to be able to define it or describe. So I had to understand and listened to the wisdom of other people, and I came to the conclusion, this is just me, a personal opinion, that God in my life is the truth of now, the wisdom which I get from other people, truth, love and wisdom, how to love people and be loved back. And the higher power is good conscience. I'm connected somehow to the good of life and living. So it's not my solution or my will these days. It's looking for the solution which fits with reality for everyone. So I don't know more or less than anybody else, and everybody has the freedom of choice rather than being wrapped into a manipulation or control. Different at work, career and all that, but somehow we need to keep on an open, honest, willing program of learning and being in the solution of living rather than being in the madness of where we've come from. And that takes time. So I'm very happy that there are people in AA who believe in God. The God of their understanding, or your understanding, is absolutely right for you. And I'm very happy with the God of my understanding, which is connected to truth, love and wisdom, the universe, nature, providence, and good conscience. And in good conscience, it took me a long time to get back on track, because if my mind was addled and confused from the very start. I didn't really understand life. From mid-teens, life went downhill dramatically, as my family went downhill too. I mean, in terms of father, mother, brother, sister, we all found ourselves in desperate places because of economics and the way life turned out. And it was a very challenging time, and most of us at the time drank to oblivion to get through a horror that was just so difficult that we couldn't cope. Anyway, some of us survived, most of us did, and I'm very pleased that somehow other relatives have not found themselves in the same situation as me, on a park bench with a bottle and nothing to live for. Thank God they didn't. So, you know, that's where I ended up, but it doesn't make it right. And it could have been different, I guess, for other people, and that's good. Wherever we get to, we get to. So in the solution today is where I like to be. But I've heard some life stories recently which remind me how difficult and how jammed up we get, not because we meant it to happen, but because that's how life turned out. And that's where acceptance of life on life's terms is so important. It's not this feeling of what have I done to deserve this, and the answer is there is no answer. You didn't deserve it, but that's the way it turned out. And what am I going to do next? You know, we can live in the future and miss the present day. So if we make the right steps today, the future may be assured, but it's not guaranteed, and that's the truth. And we have to live through hard times as well as good times. So my thoughts this morning, and I was a bit late doing this video, is partly based on what feedback I've been getting and also listening to others. My life story, the facts, this is about step 4, when and if you've done it, you know, it sometimes seems like a daunting prospect, but I was very lucky. The person I did it with, we had plenty of time, and I was made to take my time. My life story, the facts and events through time, that's what I had to look at. My feelings about the facts of my life and expressing them to another person. My part in the problem of life back in the day. Overwhelming and unseen emotions pushed away. And when I got sober, these overwhelming emotions couldn't be pushed away, so I had to deal with the dread and fear that my life had been. We did our best with what we knew, and then acceptance of life on life's terms. So I did the best with what I knew at the time. It was the very best I could be, and I was trying to be the best for you, whoever you were. But I didn't really understand how to love and be loved back. I didn't really know how to make relationships, not make them, but live relationships, rather than try and control them, to make it good all the time, desperate that you would be happy with me. Yeah, life was so desolate and I felt alone. I had let everyone down. I've missed a bit here. We did our best with what we knew, and then acceptance of life on life's terms came along in daily living today. That took me a while to get to daily living. The daily review keeps me in the emotional and spiritual solution today, which is what AA is all about. Emotional, knowing what our feelings are, and spiritual. As one cleric said, spiritual is the ability to cope with reality as it is today. So if I know my feelings and can cope with reality, I'm on track. But I do a daily review. How's it gone? What's happened? What's my part in it? What could I have done to improve matters if things have gone awry? Because I'm human and I can go back into old behaviour, tell people to mind their own business and bugger off, just the same as any human can, and then actually say, oh, maybe I ought not say that, maybe there's a better way. But not to be in denial about the anger, rage or feeling that is there. It's what I do about it. What can I do? Not much on my own, often. Anyway, moving on. Belonging somewhere when all I had was a park bench and a bottle, I did not know what to do with myself when I came to the last days of my drinking. Life was so desolate and I felt alone. I had let everybody down and could not cope. I feared fellowship, the AA fellowship, and being judged by people in it. Some people did judge, but most accepted me as a human who could be sober one day at a time. And that's the most important thing. We still have judgments about people, even though we don't want to judge them because it's not what we feel is right. But we still have prejudices, which maybe we haven't understood. But most people are looking to help and support and do it in the right way, so that people who are overwhelmed with their situation at least have some new people to lean on who won't pull them down, but want to try and build them into being a free human being again, without control, without trying to have power or anything over them. So it's about getting to a place where we're human again, moving towards this normality, which is extraordinary. We can do extraordinary things by being normal, and we'll do excellent things some of the times, and some of the results of our work and endeavour will turn out to be not useful to anyone, including us. But it was worth doing it, because at least we found earlier, sooner rather than later, that maybe we were on the wrong track, because we don't do it all alone. We don't isolate and produce something which is not fit for purpose anymore. Previous years, newcomers and old-timers, too much information. We are all battered by information all day long, with a mind pickled in alcohol, driven to be perfect and always being set up by ourselves and our promises. We fall short of perfect, which is where we were aiming. The world become a grim place every day. Even when we stop the pickling process with alcohol and get sober, the amount of information still to process is the same, and we can keep life simple if we choose to do so. How do we keep life simple? Truth, love, wisdom. If we look to the real truth of our situation, rather than what we're upset about and can't deal with, if we look for the truth of can do, can't do, we find a place of acceptance of the way life is right now. And as a newcomer, me trying to accept the horror, the shakes, the inability to cope with anything was just desperate. But I was safe enough in the end to get to meetings of fellowship, just listen and try and drink some coffee or tea, eat biscuits, one meal a day at the time when I first started, and it was not a very big meal good news is I'm here, but that's some time ago, and there's more on the blog. But hearing the desperation of newcomers, and sometimes I don't hear it, but then when I do really hear it, when I'm not wrapped up in my own problems and I hear the suffering, and just to give a little bit of hope and support, which is appropriate, can be helpful some of the time. But we are overwhelmed when we're new, and then as we settle down into a normal pattern, and these linking steps that people talk, 12-step program, what the hell is that? What are you going to make me into? And the answer is nothing. It's what you make for yourself. Not fixing, just living the solution, life as it is. And it's wonderful, it's truly wonderful some of the time. And this is a man who has experienced and developed type 1 diabetes in recovery. Not through drink, unfortunately. I wished I could blame myself. It would have been, I can nail myself on the cross for that one. I went and had a wisdom tooth out, got an infection and a virus, type 1 diabetes. But it did lead into a lot of help physically from a hospital, and they also detected my clinical depression as well. And then they looked at my life and the notes and all the stuff going back to 1964, when my doctor's notes started. God knows how they are. Anyway, clinical depression, and it's rife in my ancestry. There are funny stories about what uncles used to do in terms of depression and where it took them. Not so funny when you live it, as everyone knows who has experienced depression, and most people have. It's part and parcel of where we are. Professional help outside fellowship can be extraordinarily useful. The 12-step program and fellowship is for sober, and once we're sober and have our wits back, we listen to the advice which comes from any source, which is scientific, professional, doctors, dentists, psychiatrists, and also our religious connections if we have them. I don't, but I have an understanding of God which works in my life around truth, love and wisdom, the absolute truth of how life is today, love, how to love and be loved back, and the wisdom comes from other people. And that fits in very well with the serenity prayer. Excuse me for shifting a lot today. Back pain, stand too long and I'm in trouble. The serenity prayer around acceptance of life on life's terms and what we cannot do. I can change me and my attitudes and behaviour if I am able, and that's not always the case when depression is really where it is, and for me it's cyclical, it just comes and goes. But it's not where alcohol took me, which was always wanting to be out of it and not wanting to wake up. At least today when I wake up I can ask myself, how am I feeling and why? What can I do? And if it's desperately bad, which sometimes it is, I need share about it, and that's why I go to meetings. Even when I'm feeling at my worst, I just share. Life is really hard right now, and then at least I'm not alone, and people can give me a hug. They may not solve it, but at least emotionally I'm aware and can receive love unconditionally from other people. And also the other way around, love people unconditionally. Love is unconditional. If it has conditions attached, it's not love, it's about control. So why don't you love me? Of course you don't have to, nor can you if you don't, but I can't make you. And the same applies the other way around as well. We won't like everybody we meet in life for whatever reason, but we set a standard of understanding for ourselves around how we love people and care for them and cherish them without being superficial or indifferent. And that's all part of the serenity prayer. All this works together as you start to understand it. And I guess I'm talking to people who actually know how it works as well, which is, I have gratitude for all of you out there who know, because you help me. So the serenity prayer which I share at the end of these videos is the can do, can't do on a daily basis, and learning the wisdom to know the difference. That is the serenity prayer, and it can be said to God, the God of your understanding, not a God of my understanding, or you can't adopt my God, but it's the same God ultimately, because it does revolve around truth, love and wisdom. Truth as it is, real love, how to love people, be loved back, and the wisdom is what we learn from others and we develop in ourselves as we go along. So to God or in good conscience, I've got there now. God, or in good conscience, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Always in the imperfectly perfect moment of now, and just for today.